I get a quick message about that. Thank you, Marnie. So our first panelist today is Amy Shea. She graduated from the Mark School with her MPA in 2019, and she is a senior program officer and small business advisor, early career and education from the Low Income Investment Fund. I know these are going to be long, fancy titles, which we will get more into within our second question. Our second speaker is Gregory White, who received his MPA from the Mark School as well in 2011. And he is a management analyst at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then our third speaker is Sabrina Reveron from her MPA program. She graduated in 2020, and she is a community partnership account manager at Housing Works. And so without further ado, let's jump right into our first question. And Amy, I'm going to ask you to start it off, but if you can do a brief introduction, your name, you already did your title, I guess, and organization, but maybe who you are and an overview of what your organization does so we can set the scene.
Thank you, Ricky. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Yes, my name is Amy. I work at the Low Income Investment Fund, or we're better known as LIF, L-I-I-F. We are a national nonprofit community development financial institution. Like Ricky said, there are like these long terms. A CDFI is just a fancy way of saying we're a nonprofit bank. We have, $900 million in assets under our management. Our mission is to mobilize capital and partners to achieve opportunity, equity, and well-being for people and communities. So we just offer innovative financial solutions because we're trying to create more equitable outcomes by building affordable homes, quality educational opportunities from early childhood through a higher education, health clinics, healthy food retail, and community facilities. I lead our early care and education work here in New York City, and that just really aligns with my passions. I've always been working in early childhood education. I used to be a preschool teacher. I used to be a nanny. I worked in early intervention with babies to toddlers to 3-year-olds with their speech. And I'm just really passionate about supporting women, especially women of color. And those are typically the folks that we see operating our childcare programs in New York. So a little bit about myself. I currently live in New York City. I'm from Massachusetts originally, and my parents are Cambodian immigrants. They are refugees. So I'm the first one in my family to go to college, and I'm just really happy that I found my way to Baruch and that I'm here with you all today. I never thought that I'd be in New York City, but here I am, and I'm so fortunate to be able to apply my passion to my professional life and to do what I love every day. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Amy. And we're going to touch upon some of those teasers in a way a little bit later. Gregory, same kind of question, a little bit about you, and if you could explain the organization you currently work for.
Awesome. My name is Gregory White. I work for the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and we have a big mission, but most of our work is related to providing affordable housing. And in my capacity, I actually work in our Human Capital Information Systems Division, which manages all the human capital data for our agency. So it helps our agency leaders make more efficient, more data-driven decisions. For me, I'm originally from Detroit. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. I live in DC proper. And for me, I do government work because as somebody who grew up from a working class background, first generation college student, I think it's important for us with talent and skills to give back. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much. And Sabrina, if you could wrap us up in this question as well.
So I'm Sabrina. I work for Housing Works as an account manager, and my role in here is, well, let me tell you about Housing Works. We started in the 90s, and this goes back when they were providing housing or fighting to get housing for folks who live with HIV as a part of ACT UP. Since then, the organization has moved into providing social services and healthcare services to underserved New Yorkers. So homelessness, any immigrants, any community, HIV, of course, and any community that needs assistance is underserved. Basically, my job is to connect people with care. So I work with other nonprofits or government as well. We work with shelters, different partners, community partners, and my role is to get them enrolled in care, sort of like case manager, but I'm not a case manager. And it's really a rewarding experience. I started working in nonprofit back in Venezuela. I actually I was born and raised in Caracas, and I came to the U.S. for my undergrad, which is in international relations. And at the time, I was very interested in more international scope. And then I went back to Venezuela to work for a nonprofit. It was incredible. Great experience, very difficult. And moving forward, then I came back to New York, and that's where I started my graduate school, and working for Housing Works, which is an incredible opportunity in terms of getting to know the city and what resources are available for folks who really need the help.
Thank you. Yeah, so to the audience members, as you can see, each of our panelists have had a variety of different paths to get where they are now. And so you should feel encouraged that there is no one right path, and it's about taking steps to make progress versus finding a linear way to get to the end goal. And so kind of with that being said, I'd love if you could each share more details about your current role and really about the day-to-day. What do you do? What does it entail? You know, we talked about the fancy titles that people have, but what does that really mean? I think this is an area that a lot of students always ask for in panels like this. Like, give us the nitty gritty, give us the tea, like, what is your actual job? Gregory, let's start with you.
Well, so my title is management analyst, but I feel like I put out fires every day. So in my role, my day-to-day, I usually start my day about between 8 and 9 o'clock. All right. And there's all kinds of data related to pay and payroll and human capital and performance and all of that. Well, one of the challenges the government is facing government-wide is the time it takes to hire someone. And the OPM is the federal HR office for the federal government. It's the Office of Personnel Management. And a few years ago, they had an initiative so that they could shrink this hiring time to 80 days from start to finish. Well, a lot of agencies never meet that. And our leadership team is trying to get our time to hire closer to that. In order to do that, I've had to figure out the entire hiring process, from recruitment to onboarding to working with third-party vendors. And, you know, how do you get an approved list of candidates? You get that information to the manager. Each one of these pieces takes up a certain amount of time. I collect that information, I build an analysis, and then I also do visualization. So I use Power BI as a visualization tool. I've used Excel, I've used Tableau, because most people aren't excited about rows and columns of numbers and data. But if I put a chart in front of you and I let you click some buttons and the screen changes and, you know, arrows go this way or that way, now it's a toy that actually teaches you. So I build toys for adults with important data. And sometimes that's challenging because an agency like HUD, we have about 8,000 people. And we have, I want to say, about 16 different program offices. Our program offices are the various subunits that get the work done, whether it's our community development office or our HR folks or our field office teams. All of these people have different roles within the agency. And I'm the guy who sort of gets that data and helps them make more efficient, more effective decisions.
Amazing. Thank you. Sabrina, if you wouldn't mind sharing next.
Absolutely. So my role starts around 8:30, or not, sometimes 8, 9 until 5. It's very, what I do is, like, again, sort of like a case manager, but not really. So I get referrals from multiple sources from the city. Let's just say a shelter, right? So a shelter, it needs assistance for a folk that just came back to society from reentry, and they need social services, and they need assistance with medical assistance. So what we do is that we assess what the client needs. It's like, okay, they might need Medicaid, so we need to make sure that they need an insurance specialist, or they need obviously to see a doctor. Also mental health is a huge part of it, or they might or might not have problems with substance use, so we also connect them to substance use program. Most of them also need assistance with housing, so then there's a program that assists with, navigating with the craziness of the city, has to be with housing. But I get multiple referrals during a day, right? So there's a lot of back and forth and kind of understanding what programs do we have and in what best fit to the client needs. There's a lot where I might be in between the case manager, or I am actually talking to the client. So I've learned a lot in terms of being very personable, and it's so hard. Some of the people that I work with, they have such a difficult life, and my role there is just to be as patient and understanding and as human as I can be, and try to make sure that I would, that I'm going to at least try to get the minimum needs that they have. And that's my day to day. I have a lot of presentations with different organizations. Start working, or any problems that, how to engage those clients again. We have a lot of people who are not ready for that care. So again, there's a lot of that, and then of course my own admin set self that has to do with we use Salesforce. We use a lot of medical programs because we're a medical organization after all, and Excel, and a lot of data, and my email and my phone. I'm always on the phone.
Great, thank you. I saw a meme on Instagram the other day that said something like, we need to stop asking each other what we do for a living, because the truth is we're all just writing emails and answering phone calls, and that's what it is. I know one of my colleagues in the room, Sandy, and I always joke that we basically just have a PhD in email writing, and that's what our expertise is. So for all the students out there, get ready. And you actually both gave a little teaser, because a question that we are going to ask is about some of the soft and technical skills that we, as aspiring industry professionals, or taking the next level of our, or taking the next step in our industry, what are some of those skills? So that is a question we are going to answer. But Amy, if you could also share about your day to day and give us the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. And such a good point about the emails. Like sometimes you just want to be like, you know what? Your email does not find me well today, not at this particular moment. So, but I still find myself writing that every single day. So you'll get the email lingo pretty quickly. I'm a big Happy Friday person. I also like to keep in my exclamation points and smiley faces. So, corporate life will not, beat that out of me at all. My regular day to day, I work a regular 9 to 5. The hours they're a little flexible. Working from home is very flexible. Lyft is actually headquartered out in San Francisco. So a lot of my colleagues don't even log on until noon our time. So the mornings are kind of quiet. It's usually between 12 and 2, you'll start to get those. People are waking up and they're responding to their emails. But like I said before, I lead our early care and education work. A lot of our work is talking to interested funders, different groups of stakeholders. And, at Lyft, we believe that early care and education is a pillar in like the social determinants of health. And we think that ECE is critical for a thriving community. It's a key racial equity strategy, and Lyft is really taking on what we call a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal of spending $5 billion to advance racial equity in the next 10 years. So ECE is a big part of that. So a lot of my time is spent talking to funders or people who are just interested in learning more about the sector. For example, I think we had some city council candidates who just wanted to learn a little bit more about ECE. So they reached out to us and we had a meeting with them. We understand that early care and education is chronically underfunded. Governments rarely reimburse programs for the full cost of care. So I feel like I spend a lot of my time, in a nutshell, trying to overcome the obstacles that are in a childcare provider's way in terms of getting money, right? So like say there's a childcare provider and the end goal is money. There's all these obstacles in the way for getting a childcare provider to getting funds that they need to improve their programs or enhance their programs. And I find myself to be in the privileged position to be in the middle to help them overcome those obstacles and get access to capital. Because we know that that's honestly kind of what the sector really needs right now. So I spend a lot of time talking to providers as well. We make grants. So our main bread and butter is facilities work. So fundraising and deploying grant money for childcare providers to renovate their spaces, to expand, modify, improve. We support them in building out their dreams. You know, a childcare provider has to bounce between so many different regulatory agencies, the Department of Education, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, the Department of Buildings, like all these health codes, all these zoning laws, all of this stuff. And then they also have to manage their program, manage their staff, talk to families, talk to their community. They have to do all these things. And then if they want to improve their space, they also have to become project managers for construction projects. Like it's so crazy. So we really just try to support providers through that process. And we also try to help them with their business. So I do a lot of trainings and workshops, a lot of logistical planning of virtual trainings now about finances, accounting, marketing, all these things that childcare providers really need support with. Like they could be the most amazing educator in the world, but they may struggle to learn an accounting platform. So we'll have trainings for that. So yeah, I spend a lot of my time talking to people in the community, to childcare providers, supporting them with grants, a lot of back and forth. How do I upload this? How do I do this? So it's really a privilege to work with these like incredible professionals. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you so much. And so I think it's safe to say these are not the first and only, you know, professional development opportunities and careers you've all had in your life. So I'd be curious to know, what have been some of the most impactful experiences you've had, whether it be professionally, personally, that's led to where you are now? And this could include a previous job, this could include a leadership program, you know, education opportunities, et cetera. So some of those really impactful, game-changing moments for you. Sabrina, if you could start.
Sure. This is a fascinating question because, like I said, so a little background on myself. I came to the United States when I was 17 for college, and I did my undergrad in St. Louis, Missouri, and I graduated at 21. And I went back to Venezuela with these ideas of, you know, just work for the problems of, you know, for Venezuela, or where some of the greatest needs. So I started working this nonprofit United Way, which they had a headquarters in Caracas. And one of their focus in Venezuela was child education and child development. So we went and we worked with private companies that would give money for development and the volunteers. So we had a school that it was like 2 hours from Caracas. And this is 2000, I don't even remember now, 2014, 15. This is prior to the full collapse of the country. It was on that verge in that way. But anyway, it was a very dangerous location, and there were guerrillas and armed groups that could different things, either not drugs or just part of the conflict with Venezuela. And in order to get to this school, we need to get protection. And with that, we needed to have the military with us and bulletproof, cars. And well, you know, I was the one who was working with how to get the activity or the event go through. So I had to do the budget. I had to secure security, you know, I got the security, I got to plan all of that. And it was also, it was incredibly difficult because I don't know how much aware of it, but Venezuela has one of the highest inflation of the world. So whatever I calculated on that day, there was the budget, next day was completely different. So, you know, there were so many factors and that we had to take into consideration to go through this activity. And again, the activity was to go to school and they were gonna repaint some of the school, and they were also gonna build, I think, like a it was music school or something like that. I can't remember the details now. And it was just, now I look into perspective, it's like, wow, that was incredible, fascinated, and interesting and difficult at the time. But it definitely gave me strengths, like in a way that, like, even in New York City, which is rough too, right? Like, especially there are neighborhoods that I go that I do presentations and to visit clients sometimes, or visit accounts. They're difficult, and now I'm like, nothing really scares me anymore.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like a very intense, impactful, um, life-changing situation. And sometimes those, um, scary situations or questionable situations are the most impactful and really put you on a path that you hadn't considered before. And so not only thinking about positive experiences as those impactful moments, but it could be anything.
Like, and I think also define you, right? Because at that moment I understood that my role was to serve the community. It didn't matter how crazy could it look like, but I was
Yeah.
happy doing that.
Yeah, perspective. I like that that's what it was about. Yeah. Um, Amy, if you could share next.
Sure. And thank you for the question. I was thinking about how I would answer. So I think I'll start with saying that when I was an undergrad, I actually studied speech, language, and hearing sciences at the University of Connecticut. And at first I wanted to be a speech and language pathologist. I think I always knew that I wanted to help people, that I wanted to work with children. I wanted to be a pediatric speech pathologist. But when I finished grad school, my undergrad, I started working in early intervention with families and children with their child development, and specifically their speech development. And that's, a free program essentially paid for by the state, right? So I was able to support families free of charge to them. And I'd come to their homes and I would do activities and with their children and connect them to community resources and all of that. So I felt like I was supporting a lot of families that way on an individual basis. I saw like 30 kids a week, and it was great. And I became, I still keep in touch with a bunch of those families. And then I wanted to apply for speech school. And I just want to say this to anybody out there who's like thinking about these things. Like, I really wanted to be a speech pathologist. I even applied to some schools. It didn't work out for me. And I was in a really tough spot thinking like, this is what I thought I was going to do. I had a whole plan. And then it didn't work out the way that I wanted. But honestly, I think I landed really where I was supposed to be. So I took a few years off after undergrad to work and gain experience. I met, through happenstance, met somebody with a job offer in Connecticut, and I worked privately for a family in Greenwich, Connecticut for a couple of years. Now, if folks are familiar with Greenwich, Connecticut, it's a very, very wealthy town, and I worked for a very, very wealthy woman. I'll spare you the story. If you and I ever see each other at the Globe, maybe in future non-pandemic times, for a drink, I will share the full story. But I will just say that working in this house really built my character. This was a woman who had very extreme political views, and they were very different from my own. And so I learned a lot about myself then, and I was confronted with a lot of, this was a woman. She was a white woman. She employed women of color in her home. She employed undocumented workers in her home, and she had really conflicting political views about all of that. And again, I'm a daughter of refugees, and this was the time, when we have slashed our refugee numbers as a country. All these things are happening, and the 2016 election happened while I was working in that home. And I decided, you know what, I want to go back to school for policy. Like, this is it. I've been helping families on an individual case-by-case basis, and I love that. But I don't want to be the one just plugging all these different holes all the time. Like, I want to go where I can make more of an impact. Where do people make these policies? How can I get involved? How do I get a seat at that table? And how do I help more families at a larger scale? And so I started looking at grad programs. I found Baruch, and I found the Marx curriculum list. I read through all the classes that Marx had to offer, and I was like, this is where I need to go. And I never thought that I'd end up in New York City. I was intimidated by New York City. I'm from Boston. a smaller city. There's that weird Boston, New York rivalry. And I was like, ew, I'll never go to New York. But I will just say New York is an incredible, amazing, like life-changing city. So I came here, I didn't know anybody. And I was like, I'm just gonna try it out. The program changed my life. It gave me all these tools that I feel like I just really needed to sharpen. And it put me in a network of just people who thought like me, who also wanted to make really big changes in their own communities. I just loved being around so many diverse people from all these different backgrounds, different countries, different ethnicities, different heritages, literally every single person you can meet at Baruch. It's incredible. And yeah, I decided to get my degree in public administration. I got a job at the Department of Education through another Marks alum. And, through working with the DOE, I ended up at Lyft, and I've been able to transform my personal passions into a professional life, which I'm just so incredibly grateful for, because I get to really like merge those two parts of myself. And I really get to do that impactful change that I was seeking before.
Thank you so much for
Wow.
sharing. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear about the importance of being self-reflective, and how when you were in this situation in Connecticut, and you really
rough.
had to think through,
Whew.
what am I doing here? Does this feel good to me? If
Right.
not, why not? And how can I move forward from it?
Absolutely.
And if you didn't take the time to reflect, it sounds like, your path could have been very different, and, maybe you
Totally.
wouldn't have obtained your MPA, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so beaten down because I did apply to some speech programs and I didn't get in. And when you have that expectation for yourself and you don't reach it, you're like sitting in this darkness and you're like, wow, am I even smart? Like, am I even capable?
Yeah.
So it was in that moment where I really dug deep and was able to truly find my passion. And that's how I found Baruch. And so, yeah, just don't ever give up on yourself. Like, you are meant to be, where you're meant to be. So.
And
Yeah.
I'll do a quick reminder of something very casual Amy said, but it sounds like one of her first jobs after her graduate program was through getting it through networking. And so networking is a very significant, often I hear the number one way people get job opportunities. So please consider the power of networking. Gregory, please share with us an impactful moment, story, program. If you can talk fast, get a few in there.
Okay. First of all, the ladies have done such a great job. Those stories, they made me reflect on things. I was over here taking notes, so I can make sure that I included some points like, oh yeah, what about that? So I mentioned earlier that I'm from Detroit and I'm the oldest of 9 kids. And my mother was a teen parent. My mother was 15 when she had me. And then I was a teen parent. I was 16 when I had my first kid. So I wasn't necessarily the college bound kid that most people think of when they think of University of Michigan grad. But that's actually why I went to college, because I saw teachers talking to these other kids and I'm like, they're not that smart. They just come to school. I just don't. And so my thing was, I'm gonna go to college just to prove that I can go. And then I'm gonna go back home and do my thing. Because I grew up in the era where, crack cocaine was a way to make money in my neighborhood. And I was a paper boy, which was one of the most pivotal experiences of my life. And people are like, well, how is paper boy really that pivotal? Well, one of the things is there's nothing you do every day, but as a paper boy, the paper gets delivered every day. So it taught me to show up every day, no matter what was going on. It teaches you an incredible amount of resilience. 2, I used to be a short, skinny, quiet kid before I got, into the gym. So getting your money from adults, you had to have some interpersonal skill set. So I learned to be very articulate and very persuasive. And that right there helped me understand that I could pretty much do anything. So in college, I decided that even though I was a teen parent, I was going to go to college. I mean, even though when I was in high school, I decided I was going to go to college. And I only applied to 3 schools in Michigan, and Michigan State were the top 2, because at the time, Michigan State had a reputation for admitting Black students, and Michigan had a reputation for admitting the smarter students. So I wanted to prove that I could be at the top tier. And so I got into Michigan, but I had no idea what I was going to do when I got there. So the first 2 years I stumbled around. Ultimately, I righted the ship. And one of the next most impactful experiences was I ended up winning an international fellowship, which took me to South Africa for 6 months. So Mandela got elected in '94, and immediately after, I was in South Africa for 6 months. So I had an experience that few people in the world get, which is seeing a country transition from apartheid to democracy, particularly as a Black person coming from the United States with its particular history of racism and segregation. And now you're in another country that is predominantly Black, but in a lot of ways going through the same things. So I would say that experience, it grounded me in a way. I came back to the United States, reinvigorated. I won another fellowship through the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, which is how I ended up paying for part of my education at Harvard. I got my master's in education while I was at Harvard, and I was a live-in nanny. I was an au pair. So when I was hearing your story, I was like, wow, that's crazy. My family, completely different. I was living with like the upgraded Huxtables. They were a Black family. They were wealthy. They were well-connected. We had a 3-story mansion. I was like the Fresh Prince of Boston, driving around Jamaica Plain. I would show up to these fancy practice facilities with my kid, and he'd be like, "That's my brother." He was away at college. So it was a great time. It was a fantastic experience. After that, I actually moved back home to Detroit because I wanted to teach in schools like the ones that I grew up in for kids who were younger versions of me. And I loved it. I was a crazy teacher. I would shout at my kids, stand on my desk. I would go visit your house. I would show up to the club and talk to your mom on the dance floor about where's my homework. Kids were terrified, like, yo, you got to do his homework because he's crazy. So I had a great time, but I forget who said it, but I wanted to have impact at scale. Amy, you said it. You said something about providing the individual support. And that's what I felt like I was doing in the classroom. I was saving 30 to 50 kids at a time, saving in quotes, because I don't have a cape today. But I wanted to have impact at scale. And at 20 something, I just didn't know how to do that. I knew I didn't want to go back to school right away. So my first job after teaching, I went to work for Morgan Stanley Dean Witter as a financial advisor. I wanted to know, how do wealthy people get money, make money, acquire money, keep money? And I was thinking, they're going to have these secrets that I'm going to, uncover, and then I'm going to take them back to the hood, and we're all going to be rich. And what I learned is that most people with money already have money, or they have something more important, a network. All right. I teach networking to back home at times, before the pandemic and before I moved to DC, because I feel like there's 3 kinds of work that I impress upon my students, my friends, my kids. There's hard work, there's smart work, and network. And hard work is what most of us are taught to do. And it's not a bad thing, it's just not the best thing. Smart work is definitely better, you get more bang for your buck, but network is like an exponent on whatever you do. You don't just get your hard work and your network, you get that, and it flows out to the people you know and their resources, and then it amplifies. And that right there has been the most amazing thing I learned from going to a place like Michigan or a place like Harvard. Once I started at Morgan Stanley, and I realized that it wasn't about the hard work and grinding it out to make your millions. I was bored because I sort of had figured it out. I stayed in the Fortune 100, 150 realm for a decade. I worked for Liberty Mutual in their commercial insurance division, premiums of $50,000 to $2 million a year. And then I worked for Pfizer, which was also probably the most developmental private sector experience I ever had. I worked for Pfizer for about 5-7 years, and I rose up through the company, made a lot of money. But it also helped me understand that a lot of these companies, they really don't care. They really are about shareholders and the share price and how much money can be made. And that was a conflict I had to resolve in myself, because the first 25 years of my life, I was just angry. I was doing things that people said a teen parent couldn't do, a Black kid couldn't do, a low-income kid couldn't do. And then one day I woke up, I'd done all the things that nobody said I could do, and I had no idea who I really was. I just wanted to give back and do something more important, more impactful. So after working at Pfizer, I invested my money in real estate, worked for myself. Life was good. I'm living good, multiple houses, motorcycles, living the dream. Then the market crashed and I literally lose everything. I woke up one day, I had like $500 in my account and nothing else. And that actually is what kind of got me on the path to Baruch, because I moved from Detroit to Arizona where I had a brother. He had went to Arizona State and he said, hey, if you're gonna be over there crying, come cry on my couch. At least we'll be together. So I said, I could cry in sunshine. And so I moved out to Arizona on November 2nd. My birthday was November 9th, and everything started to be better, literally that week. I ended up somehow being on a listserv, and somebody mentioned the National Urban Fellows Program and Baruch. And I read through it and I said, well, I've had a lot of corporate experience. I don't know if I'm the guy they're looking for. So I called the director and I said, hey, I just want to be honest with you. I'm not sure if I'm the guy that you're looking for. So can you tell me about the program? And if you're looking for someone like me, because I don't want to waste your time or mine. And he told me to apply. I got one of the fellowships. I moved to New York. I had friends from New York because I went to Michigan, ton of New Yorkers, went to Harvard, ton of New Yorkers. So I was comfortable. And then through Baruch, that's how I landed at HUD. And I landed in a special time because it was under the Obama administration. And I came through a program called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So I was brought in this special hiring status. I worked there for a year, built great relationships. Folks loved my work ethic. I have pretty good people skills. And, as you might be able to see, so I was able to bridge the gap in these very silo-oriented spaces. And coming from a more rigorous professional background to the government, there was a lot of skills I had that I didn't even appreciate within myself. So I ended up being I was a management analyst there, but I worked on getting this money out to communities so that you could do this American reinvestment and recovery work. From there, I moved back to Detroit and I became a financial analyst and I oversaw public housing. So doing on-site financial reviews, making sure people are spending this money according to government regulations, teaching them how to more efficiently and more effectively run a public housing authority, all of those kinds of things. That was amazing. And then I left that job, started my PhD, and then I moved back down to DC after I did my PhD coursework to work for the Census Bureau. Census Bureau is an amazing place. It is literally the greatest concentration of stat nerds in the world, I think. But all the data that supports all the major financial metrics, the foundation is census data. And, it's very important for people of color and low-income communities in a way that we may not think of. So I'll give you a couple. One, people are fearful of giving a lot of information, so people resist the census. But this really determines what kind of resources get into your community because it's used as a planning document foundation. So that's one thing. Two, the way the Census Bureau counts incarcerated people may not be what people understand. So as an incarcerated person, a lot of times you're incarcerated because you came from a resource poor situation and you did some not so good things to get resources. Well, when you go to jail and the census comes around, you are counted as a resident of that jail, not of your community. So the communities that need the resources do not get them for you and others like you. Those jails, which tend to be in much more rural, Republican, racist areas, they get that funding. And it creates this cycle. And that's controlled at the Census Bureau. So, but it was there that I formalized a lot of my data analysis skills. I do this now, but most of it is self-taught. I didn't go to school for any of that. I took a lot of stats. I took them at Baruch. We had good stats professors at Baruch and at Michigan State, where I'm finishing my PhD in ed policy. And so after that experience, coming to HUD, I started to realize that one of the other issues is we need to get good people into the agency at all levels. And so when I was looking for a new challenge and a new opportunity, a woman who had sat in on an interview basically remembered me and said, hey, I'm in this position over at HUD. You should come check it out, see if, something we have matches what you're interested in. And that's how I got to the position I'm in now. I work on data analysis and data visualization to help people see we're missing out on a ton of good candidates, or our timeline is too long, and these operations in the field or in headquarters, they're impacted by who we have to do the work or who we don't. So I hope I didn't take up too much time, but I've had some phenomenal experiences, and I just want to make sure that people are encouraged to give it a shot. I think that sometimes when you don't know the path, you can be very hesitant. I would say, trust your gut, trust your instincts. You got this far because you've already overcome so much, but you're not giving yourself credit for those victories you've already accrued. So, look at the money in the bank you've already accrued and know that you can earn more.
Thank you so much. I think, some of my biggest takeaways are about being open to different experiences. You've shared going through a lot of different personal and professional opportunities and being opened and being curious. And again, that theme of networking and being self-reflective, all of that kind of continued through each of your stories. So thank you. I want to shift gears slightly before we open the floor to students for questions and kind of do almost a rapid fire of tips, resources, advice for students on an overarching scale. So I'm not going to ask each of you individually, so you can all unmute. You can jump in whenever you want to respond. But I think the first few questions, that you can address one of, let's keep it, if each of you can address one, just in interest of time. Are there specific technical or soft skills that the students really need to focus on developing? Are there any types of really industry specific job application websites they should know about? Any fellowship programs they should know about? Just general overarching quick advice for students in the job market.
I'll speak as an experience as English is my second language, because I know there's a lot of folks who are in the same boat that I am. So I just give you an advice, as somebody who Spanish is my first language, just have somebody who is really good at writing and at English. Always go through your applications, through your resume building. I mean, I know that at Baruch we have, and I actually used a lot of it when I was like a student. But always have somebody who looks at through your writing and what you're submitting, because it's a challenge, but it's also something that you overcome easily. And and that's my advice for folks who have English as a second language.
Perfect, thank you. Amy or Gregory, who wants to jump in next?
I'll just very quickly, I know we kind of talked about it before, like networking, and we talked about how networking is important. And I know that some folks also mentioned that you can be shy, and maybe networking doesn't seem like an easy thing to accomplish. And in my view, I feel like networking can be defined very loosely. Like, it's honestly just being like a kind person and being helpful to your colleagues, to your classmates. I've sent and connected people to different jobs just because, like, I'll hear of a job opening and I'll be like, you know what? I sat next to somebody in class who was so kind and who was so smart in class, and I would send that over. So it's really just like making the best of your situation and being friendly to the people who are around you, so that you can remember or be remembered. So that's just a little bit of advice. And then the last thing I want to say is, like, if you can figure out how to talk about your biggest passions in a professional way, I found that for me, that has helped me get into the meetings, committees, or jobs that I really want. Like for me, racial equity and gender equity and economic equity, environmental equity, racial equity, I think I said that already. Those are the things I care most about. And I was like, how can I translate this into a job? And so I really just started thinking about that. So really putting some thought into how you can translate your passions into professional verbiage, I think would be a great start.
Great. So Amy and Sabrina's both themes were about communication. So if we're taking themes and high level skills out, it's about communicating. And then again, specifically networking. Gregory, how do you want to add to this?
So I think a few things. Number one, mentally, you have to accept that you can do whatever it is. All right. I think that sometimes we pre-exclude ourselves from opportunities that we actually don't have the power to opt in on our own. So I would say, don't be your own biggest critic or your own biggest enemy. A mentor gave me some advice. You need to always be in the business of identifying, assessing, and retaining good talent. And here's what I took that to mean. When you're in class, when you're in life, there are people who are good at things, they have talent, identifying those people. That's the first part. Two, assessing who they are. Are they strictly somebody that works in their own space, or is there somebody that you can work with? They work well with others. That's the assessment portion. And three, retaining. Building good relationships is really the foundation of networking. A lot of folks are intimidated by networking because they look at it as this specific activity designed to get a job, get a position, get a raise. No. When I meet people and you're trying to get my business card to get a job, I don't know you. But if you've built a good relationship with me, whether it's through LinkedIn or in real life, then in the end, when you reach out to me and ask me for information or a contact, I'm more willing to put my reputation on the line and say, hey, you know what? I know Amy, she was on a panel, she had this, she's good people. Hey, I know Sabrina, she has this expertise in that and blah, blah, blah. Definitely have to do that. In terms of skill sets, hardcore skill sets that are transferable, project management and problem solving skills. Because basically at almost every job, you're going to inherit your work. Few of us get to create our own job description. So you're inheriting somebody else's problems. And basically it's a series of projects where more problems have to be solved. So if you can do that, you can do dang near any job in this whole wide world. So I would say those are two hardcore skills, project management and problem solving. On the softer side, emotional intelligence and communication are key. I work with so many smart people over the years. I have worked with so many smart people over the years, but their emotional intelligence is so low and their communication skills so poor that they either A, get stuck in a position, or B, they end up being excluded. Even if they're still employed, you get excluded from the good projects, you get excluded from the nice trips, you get excluded from the bonus in a way that you really find hard to fight. Because here's the thing, people work in these large bureaucratic organizations. When they gain power, they know how to keep it. All right. And they know how to fend off attacks from you or whomever, because you don't have a certain skill set. So you need to be thinking about that and developing those kind of skill sets as you go through life, because I see these as life skills, not just about jobs. And then the last thing I would say is this: don't get so caught up on, well, I'm not doing a job that's in my major. I hear that all the time. People change jobs on average 6 to 9 times in their lifetime. And I think it's going up because now with the virtual world and networking and globalism, you can do so much more. So get caught up on, am I doing something that's meaningful? Do I like getting up and doing this every day? If I have to work late, how angry or upset am I? Sometimes I work 12, 14-hour days, not because someone's cracking the whip, but because I really want to get this done, because I know that it's going to improve this office, which in this office serves 10,000 people. This office impacts 25,000 people. So I would say, get in there, get your skills together, believe you can do it, and just go hard.
Awesome. Thank you. I was about to ask 2 similar questions, but Amy just addressed them, I believe, in the chat. So thank you. So anyone curious about grant writing and how Amy got that experience, she responded to that in the chat. So awesome. Another question that is being asked, where did it go? That Samantha asked, what advice can you give to students that are graduating and are starting the job search process? Anyone can jump in on this.
I will just start quickly by saying, I know it's going to be hard to hear because you're just going to, I would roll my eyes at myself if I said it, but just be persistent. You are going to send off so many cover letters and applications. You are not going to hear back from people. You are like, it's going to happen, and it stinks every single time, but that is not a reflection on you and like who you are and what your skills are. If you write a beautiful cover letter to an organization that you really want to work for and you don't hear from them, that's okay. You know, maybe another time, maybe now isn't the time. Someone will reach out to you and will, you know, give you ample opportunity to show off your skill set. So I've said it before, but like, believe in yourself. You know, I always felt like rejections were taking away from me, but I don't think that that's true. It wasn't like a subtraction of who I was by any means at all. So just don't feel that way. You are all smart and capable. Like Gregory said before, the fact that you are even here today right now means that you have made it through all the obstacles in your life. That doesn't mean that there won't be more, but you've already made it this far. You've, you know, made it through your worst days so far. So just keep going and just believe in yourself. Really.
Thank you. Yeah. And
I
I
would
would
also,
go ahead.
all right. So for me, I think of approaching life from this perspective of you're always creating a portfolio. All right. So if I ran into you, what can you show me? What can you demonstrate? I'm a stranger, but I have opportunity that I could, you know, give to you. Why should I choose you? You know? And so I think about creating opportunities to showcase your talent. You know, if you're say, want to sell me on your project management skills, you know, what project? Be able to say, hey, this was the project. I was passionate about this. I did this with these resources over this amount of time. If it's some technological skill set, hey, as you know, one of the problems with this particular software is X, Y, and Z. But what I did, because I didn't have money, I joined these Facebook groups and I taught myself this over YouTube. And as a sample, I took this publicly available data set, and then this is the analysis I did. You know what? It agreed with something that already existed. Or I don't think it meant what the original person said it meant because this is what I found. You have to find ways to separate yourself. And the way I learned to do it was, a guy asked me, one of my mentors when I was younger, he said, if I'm interviewing you and your twin, why should I hire you over you? And it made me think about, well, all right, those are the intangibles. Because in a market like this, where everybody's sort of been out of the market in a little bit of a way because of the pandemic, a lot of people have been working on their educational skill set. So if I have to choose somebody, you know, think about the Ivy Leagues right now have unprecedented application levels right now. It's the same thing with jobs. You have tons of people with skill set. How do you set yourself apart? 2, 3, use that network. Facebook, a lot of people always think LinkedIn. Facebook is the largest social network on the planet. And I used to do social network analysis. And basically that's the mathematical and statistical quantification of flows of goods, information, and resources. Somebody right now is a degree or two away from the opportunity that you want. You know, I post things that are important to you. So on my page, I post things about equity and data and politics and race and economics and history all the time. And so people know, like, man, you know what, or business, I get calls all the time. And that's what got me better at networking, because what I realized, I didn't come from a family who had educational resources. But once you go to a place like Michigan and then go to a place like Harvard and you go travel internationally, opportunities started coming to me. I didn't have to go find them. Well, I didn't know who to give them to. I didn't know what my friends really were good at. I didn't know what they really wanted to do. Find out those things and then start the small step of extending something. You know that, you know, Amy is interested in helping a certain community and you come across that, shoot her a little article. Hey, I don't know if you saw this. Here's a trick I do. I put those searches into my Google so that certain terms and articles come to my inbox. All right. So I have people in my mind. I say, you know what, Ricky, I want to develop a better relationship with Ricky. So, she's interested in public service in this particular way. I'll put in some search terms. I'll get those emails. I'll shoot her the email. And I'll do it like first thing in the morning when I get up at 5, 6 in the morning. So that by the time she starts her day, I'm at the top of her email list. It's like, Greg White, oh, the guy from the thing. Oh, wow, this is cool. Now you're different because she's going to see 100 other resumes. She's going to get 1,000 other emails, but they're not going to be about her. So learn to create and leave an impact, and that helps set you apart.
I have something to add. I would say volunteer as well.
Yes.
Not necessarily about the things that the job, right, the career that you're looking for, but if there's something you're extremely passionate about, or this is something where you want to go in life, volunteer. That's an absolute way, or one of the best way to network, because there are folks who are doing things that you want to do. So for example, when Trump won, that was incredibly difficult for me as an immigrant, as somebody who's here for asylum. And it was like, what can I do? So I applied for my community board and I was appointed. And since then I've been, I serve in my community board. It's been 3 years, and it's probably been one of the greatest experience in not a career way. Like, I've learned so much about my city, about my community, and how can we do it better, and what can we do better, and what problems we have, and the people and the network that I have now. Like, it's quite incredible, and it's just by volunteering. So volunteer.
Thank you. Yeah, and something to piggyback off of a few of your comments. Folks sometimes are taught it's rude or it's not okay to self-promote. And I think it's something that, people's cultures teach them, their experiences teach them. But when it comes to finding a job or an internship, or if you're applying for whatever type of opportunity, you are the only person who will self-promote or who will promote you. And so you have to be comfortable with that self-promotion when it comes to a cover letter, a resume, an interview, a networking opportunity. Because if you're not going to do it, no one else either knows the information or is going to do it on your behalf. So in those instances, it's really helpful to learn how to talk about your accomplishments and your skill sets and how you can benefit an organization or a school or whatever it might be.
And I would say, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, these are going to be our final comments.
Okay. I would say, piggybacking on what Ricky was saying, one of my mentors would teach me, yeah, it's a risk trying to self-promote. You're scared about coming across in the wrong way. But if you're not ready to take the big risk, you don't deserve the big reward. It's that simple. All right. If everything was going to be easy and plentiful, we'd all be rich and wealthy, but it's not. It's difficult. And you should expect that there's some level of difficulty involved in getting to these positions that others highly covet. So if you're not willing to take the risk, you're not ready to accept the reward. So I would say, get out there, go hard for it, take your lumps and keep it moving. You've already been through enough tough stuff. You can win at this.
Yes. Thank you. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time, and I see it as 2:01. Amy, Sabrina, any final words you might want to impart on the group?
I think everything has been said. Just again, I know this sounds like this thing that we always say, but really believe in yourself, your skills, and ask questions and ask for help.
Great. Thank you. Amy, anything else?
Thank you, Sabrina and Gregory and Ricky. This was amazing. I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'm proud of you all for making the time today to join us and to learn about this and to listen to us blab for an hour. And to Sabrina's point, believe in yourself. But also, I just want to say, we need you. Every single person here, we need you. You have skills that we need in this world. You are going to make a difference no matter what way that is. Making a difference looks however you want it to look. So just believe in yourself and know that we need you. Like, you are a light in this world. Just keep on shining it. Times are really dark right now. So we just need you more than ever to carry the torch forward. So just thank you all so, so much. And I'm just excited to see what everyone in this group does. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, if I didn't answer all of your questions. And Sabrina and Gregory, you guys are absolute rock stars. I'm very, very honored to be with you on this panel.
A pleasure.
Thank you all. And yes, it's been a crazy year for so many reasons, and it just continues to be a challenge. And so staying focused on school, staying focused on your priorities and education and opportunities such as today, is really going to benefit you. So thank you all for being here and for listening and asking questions and feeling brave and having your camera on and, you know, being involved is really just continue to propel you. So thank you all again. Marnie, any words on your end?
No, also just thank you. This was wow. This was really a great conversation, and I'm so happy to have everybody involved in the Marks and the Baruch community. So really a pleasure to get to do this and bring everybody together.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you to our speakers. I see so many thank yous in the chat. Amy, Sabrina, Gregory, I couldn't have done it without you. I think everyone is saying thank you. Literally, I think so your impact is felt. And I think everyone's feeling inspired and excited about next steps. So have a great day, rest of the week, end of semester. And thank you all for being here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.